unfolding events relative to the local government reform and its operationalization. So I'll dive directly to the course. Today, we had scheduled a meeting of all of local government, every mayor, every councillor, every alderman, every chairman. That, as you are well aware, involves hundreds of persons. The effort was a coordinated effort by which we wrote to every single corporation, every mayor, and then we followed up by way of telephone communications. We indicated that the Honorable Prime Minister would lead a discussion today on the operationalization of local government reform. As you know, we've been talking about local government reform since 1959, and we have had the experience of having decades of discussion. Recently, we passed the local government amendments, and in amending the 9 laws that we have, today we came to report and to collaborate with all of the local government representatives, in no less a person than the Honorable Prime Minister leading that charge, and with me as Minister of Rural Development and Local Government taking the particulars of the discussion forward. Today, the Prime Minister, in that written invitation, would have made himself available to answer all questions and to get to the specifics. This is an extremely relevant conversation because, as threatened storms have demonstrated, and as the savages and difficulties of flooding has shown itself, operationalizing local government matters to people where it hits hardest, and that is at home. Recently, we concluded a cleanup and survey exercise of Trinidad. In that exercise, I can tell you that we moved close to 5,000 truckloads of material. We did, in terms of canvassing, over 119 acres of cleaning and cuttings, etc. And we had over 15,000 people involved. In the course of that exercise, we were able to confirm that flooding issues, for instance, in the Penal Debris, the Woodlands area, also in the Caroni area where we've had difficulties, that those issues have been caused by unplanned development that we have identified on the survey aspects. The local government event today was directly intended to address relief issues. The relief issues of funding, the relief issues of manpower, the relief issues of attending to services being delivered. Those were on deck today in the local government reform exercise. And in my memory, I do not recall a Prime Minister making him or herself available to answer direct questions from all of local government. This was intended to be a first in a very long time. Quite unfortunately, the leader of the opposition last night demanded that practitioners from the UNC arm of local government, which I should tell you is half of the country, that is 7 of our corporations, that they do not attend today's event. And therefore, the information on how we intend to operationalize local government reform was not able to be given directly to the local government practitioners who are representatives of the United National Congress. In those circumstances, it's my obligation to now share that information nationally. Unfortunately, the question and answer coming from the local government representatives themselves was also something that was denied today. In the circumstances, the Honorable Prime Minister did not attend the event today, even though we had scheduled the event and made all arrangements with the announcement by the leader of the opposition last night that the opposition would be boycotting today's important event. The Honorable Prime Minister delegated his comments to Minister Robinson Regis, who ably represented the Honorable Prime Minister today in what turned out to be a very successful event, but unfortunately it was an event which was not populated by half of the people who should be there. Every single person else attended at the event. So, ladies and gentlemen, permit me to get to the chase. We have identified a proclamation timetable that is to be presented to the Cabinet. In that proclamation timetable, the 9 laws which we have amended in the local government reform, those 9 laws fall next to be operationalized by proclaiming the laws and saying when they will begin to apply. Of the 88 amendments, 54 of them are capable of almost immediate proclamation. 10 of them will require a month to 2 to have certain mechanisms put in place. 8 of them, 3 to 6 months. 16 of them can go on in the background, and that can take a maximum of 12 months. But in this particular exercise, we are able to immediately begin the cabinet consideration of how we will partially proclaim the law. This matters as it relates to a few very core concepts of the local government reform. Number one, we're moving local government from 3 years in cycle to 4 years. Number two, the municipal council will be created. That's similar to the House of Representatives, where government and opposition all sit together in the House. And joining them would be the Executive Council. The Executive Council is similar to your cabinet. In that exercise, moving your Executive Council into full-time employment is another feature of the law. And that full-time employment means, and is very important to the nation, because the local government election cycle is going to be asking people, in the event that you win, you have to be prepared to give up your other employment and to be dedicated solely to full-time employment, much like the THA secretaries and exactly like ministers of government. The next feature is the ability for the corporation, through the hand of the Executive Council, to instruct the CEOs of corporations. And that means that much needed relief that corporations have been asking for can no longer find any obstacle of a CEO who does not align him or herself with the desires or wishes or immediacy of the local government request that the councils make by resolution. The next aspect was to talk specifically and directly to the manner in which we finance local government. And that financing of local government involves the implementation of property tax. Live examples of how property tax would be calculated, the 15 areas of where property tax would go to came in for discussion today. And by way of an example, I'll remind that residential property tax is calculated at 3% of an annual rental value. That's an estimated value. If you take a minister of government who receives a housing allowance of $12,000 per month, that minister of government would be working with a rental value of $12,000 per month. That, when you translate 3% of that and you minus the deductions, a high grossing estimate like $12,000 per month, you would pay a maximum of $324 per month in property tax. Multiple examples were prepared so that local government practitioners could understand what is being requested to be paid, and very importantly, the 15 areas that that taxation is used for could go into operation. Let's get very immediate. It means that revenue such as this could be put to the immediate use of pumping flooded areas when those events happen, could be put to clearing drains and riverways, etc., that fall under local government. We were also today speaking about operationalizing what is vested in local government, and therefore the input of all members of local government across the spectrum in Trinidad is critical, because far too often people complain that they are not being serviced by local government, and the truth is that they couldn't be serviced because local government had no responsibility, because the last time that any assets were vested in local government was the year 2000. Therefore, the exercise today was to have the interaction amongst local government coming out of our survey side of the campaign that we did in the Clean and Survey campaign to confirm the way ahead to bring lands and assets into the corporations so that the citizens of this country can be serviced by the corporation in which they live. On paper, there would be no responsibility because those assets were not vested. In treating with further local government operationalization, the hiring issue was critical for discussion today. And the government, of course, pledges that in allowing for the corporations to hire directly, in addition to Public Services Commission and the Statutory Authority Service Commission, in having that third avenue of employment and discipline available, the consultation process with the councils and with elected members and appointed members, and very importantly with the trade unions where there are recognized majority unions, that process had to begin today. And therefore the Minister of Public Administration, the Prime Minister, the Attorney General, the Minister of Rural Development were all present today to engage in that very important, if not mandatory aspect, if you look at it from a moral side of the equation, of consultation that was intended to move on today. Ladies and gentlemen, when we view the fact that we have engaged 15,000 people in the National Cleanup Campaign, when we have engaged 119 acres of clearing, where one cemetery alone is 22 acres large and involves 231 people attending to its state and condition, the people of our country are begging for their representatives to join in reform that matters most, that is, the people on the ground. To the people of Pinal Debe Regional Corporation, where significant flooding issues have been identified to be blocked watercourses, I am sure people of Caroni, people of San Fernando are all equally aligned with the representatives' views that they need to have the power to address these issues. Having the revenue from local government available to local government, having the manpower and hiring ability, having the very basic issue of whether somebody will continue to represent you because they are available full-time to go into local government. These are critical issues to be answered, and the time is now. I note that the boycott of the opposition was led by none other than the political leader, Mrs. Kamla Prasad Bisesa, the member for Siparia, and I am just in a sense of despair that the practitioners of local government have been denied a proper opportunity to engage in meaningful discussion and to face them none other than the Prime Minister and the Minister with responsibility for this exercise, which is me today as Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government. To all of these assets, when a need for pumping arises, when an allegation of a sluice gate working comes, this is what local government is about. It matters to people. It matters that we achieve the mission that we have set out to. In the circumstances, the government wishes to make this call to all members of local government. It is time for us to operationalize decades of discussion. This operationalization, to be meaningful, requires participation. People who are in charge of policy, that is sitting governments, have an obligation to present themselves for questioning. Today, the Prime Minister made arrangements for the Prime Minister to be questioned. Open microphone by all members of local government. The Minister with responsibility in this operation, Minister of Rural Development, Local Government, I made myself available for opening questioning by everyone, unscripted and on an open microphone. The Attorney General was present. The Minister of Public Administration, Alison West, who is also acting as Minister of Finance, was made available today. When we cry out for attention and we say to people, listen to us, hear us, there can be no greater and more important opportunity than taking these opportunities into reality by turning up. by asking the questions, by making sure that we're able to go back to each and every one of the people that we represent and tell our version of what we understood. Because today was a script intended for public dissemination. So, ladies and gentlemen of Trinidad and Tobago, the government will press on with further consultations. The government will engage the trade union sector. The government is able in its operationalization to approach the cabinet to ask for nearly 54 out of the 88 clauses in the legislation that has been passed to be considered for immediate partial proclamation, with 10 of them further a month to two from now, 8 of them thereafter, 16 of them after that. It is important as we ready ourselves for a local government reform process that people have a degree of certainty and that their contributions can be entertained. In this circumstance, the update in relation to the workings of property tax, where at the very highest, I've given you an example, you're looking at $340 per month by way of example for super grade housing, as they call it in the arrangements. That would be what a property tax on the residential level would look like. How we distribute from very low populated area concentration factors to high populated. So San Fernando has a high residential factor, but Mayaro may not have, by way of an example. How we balance those scales is part of the contemplations of the government, and we will continue to push that narrative forward. I'd just like to make a clarion call to all practitioners of local government, especially all of the practitioners who did not turn up today by way of a boycott by the leader of the opposition. Our constituents, each and every one of them, require us to deliver services. The Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government is in the process of operationalization. We've had a very successful campaign that our cleanup and survey has demonstrated. It is imperative, if we are representing in a system of governance, that we participate in a system of governance. The Honorable Prime Minister has presented himself by way of written invitation in today's contemplation to be questioned and to provide answers and to provide policy and other details. I have done the same. The Attorney General would have done the same. The Acting Minister of Finance today and the Minister of Public Admin equally so. So, ladies and gentlemen, notwithstanding the fact that we had a successful run with those who turned up today, I think it imperative that the national cry is one of asking representatives simply to turn up. Turning up is the start of getting business done. May I open myself to your questions, please? I see a hand up from EZP News.
Hi, good afternoon. Suan YO, EZP News. Given the proceedings of today, in terms of local government election is due soon, is there a rush to have this proclaimed for the sake of, let's say, government that is in power right now, securing like a longer term? I know that it has been on the table for years, but at this particular point, is there any particular reason why at this point, right before the local government election? And my second question is, from the UNC's actions or inaction this morning, do you think that this is a deliberate attempt to cripple any effort by government to put these things together in place? Thanks.
Thank you very much for your question. We've been 63 years discussing local government reform since 1959. 63 years. If ever there was need for a rush, as you have put it, to get local government reform, it has been there for 63 years. I want to remind you that we advanced the legislation through the Parliament. We passed a simple majority bill. We didn't have all the bells and whistles we wanted because we would not get the constitutional support for those purposes from the opposition, and therefore we passed what we could have passed. In those circumstances, we have an obligation to operationalize law. And therefore the obligation given to me, one of the gazetted responsibilities that I have, is to wind up the affairs of the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government. I have been given a gazetted responsibility to put myself out of a job in the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government. So we intend to operationalize the law. In moving to a broader system of law, that's what we're focused upon. Local government requires the money. We've said here is how you can get more money. Local government requires authority to make CEOs and other administrative entities function in line with the mandate that people give through the councils. And therefore our priority is to empower local government. It's to empower all of the people who are the victims of flood. They would want to know that their council has the resources to assist them in flood time, has the resources to prosecute people who are blocking waterways and causing hundreds of people to live in hardship. In the Penal Debe Regional Corporation, there is one entity where an incursion into the river has resulted in the entire river moving into 2 feet of passage, with the result that there's flooding in that particular area as a result of that. People in this country want to see results, and therefore we are anxious to give them the results. The holding of any election is a matter that the Honorable Prime Minister speaks to, whether it is a general election or a local election. The term of office for local government statutorily comes to an end on the 2nd of December 2022. And then, of course, you can have a maximum outside window within the stated law of up to the 1st of March 2023. So there is no rush to engineer matters for an election. What there is a statutory mandate to come to life. The local government reform has been passed. We had to take it through local government and joint select committee consultations, and those are the factors. So we just really want to just urge the country to demand of their representatives that we get on with the business of representing people. So I hope that has answered your question, and I ask if there are any more questions. We received a number of them by WhatsApp and other positions in terms of communications. I'm seeing that we are running on a time limit at this point right now, and therefore I've got to bring the question and answer to an end. Please, ladies and gentlemen, understand local government reform is critical. For every person that is afraid when the showers happen above us, please take note that grey clouds can be dealt with if we can treat with systems. I understand, Suan, that you have one more question. Our team is telling us that we can facilitate that question, so I'll take it quickly.
Yes, I tried to get it in quickly before the time is up. Can you just give us an update with respect to the disasters that are happening, throughout the country last week and before? Any update going forward within the corporations? Thank you.
Yes, so as you know, the Ministry of Rural Development, Local Government, we are center point for remedial responses. Our disaster management units across all 14 corporations are supplemented importantly by the municipal police, who are our eyes and ears. All of the events that have happened, be it on the North Coast where we had landslides, which were all attended to on the same day, we have coordinated relief with a number of agencies, Ministry of Works and Transport, the Trinidad and Tobago Defence Force. For instance, we dealt with North Coast issues that way. In treating with WASA and the contractors that we deployed, and in Caroni, for instance, Cuva, the contracting teams that went in to clean up, to wash down roads, etc. All of these issues have been attended to. Of course, mop-up works have calculations of damages and other structures which went to the various places that they need to. But today's event was really to intend that these things stop happening by giving the corporations the resources that they are demanding and deserve. Manpower, financing, timelines to get it done. And that's why I feel compelled to say to everybody who is a victim of a flood, to everybody who is a victim of non-collection of something that is critical to them, be it bulk waste or otherwise, that's where our local government team has to be supported And today, the Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago coordinated a live meeting with every representative, not from one political party, but all representatives. And when you have a Prime Minister prepared to face the live and hard questions on an open microphone with no time limit, those are opportunities which I respectfully believe ought to be embraced so that the hard questions and proper answers can be given. So Suan, thank you for your questions. I take the cue from the editorial team here, the time clock team, that we've run out of time. I thank you for your questions this afternoon and for this opportunity to convey a very important message that local government reform is here. The operationalization of it has begun, and we intend to get it done. Thank you.